Welcome to another edition of Lab Rats. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And this is going to be the highest energy episode you've ever seen about desktops and laptop microprocessors. I promise. Yay! No, really. I mean, today, sorry, Matt. Poor Matt's just lost his hearing.
Pardon?
This is one of those episodes, it's like, people have been talking about, how do I make sense of the CPUs in the new generation of laptops? How do I choose between i7 and i5 and Core 2 and Celeron? How do I choose? And so we're going to walk through the whole Intel family of what's available towards the end of 2009, early 2010. So you can kind of get a sense of where the different product lines are. Once upon a time, it was easy. It was Pentium 1, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, Pentium 4, Pentium, never Pentium 5. But now it's this really weird, diverse set of sub-brands, I guess. So let's make head or tail of that today, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, and we're going to do it with lots of energy, because it's an otherwise boring topic. All right.
Processors aren't boring.
Yeah, they are. They can be. So we're not going to make them boring, though. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, processors demystified today on the high-energy version of Lab Rats! Yay! No, honestly, it's not that boring. Thank you, Matt. Our producer sitting there in the corner taking 40 winks. It's going to be a great episode. It really is. Are you ready? Wakey, wakey there, mister. All right, so let's start at the beginning. You walk into a store, and you're thinking, I'm going to buy a new computer. And you're going to buy an Intel processor, really, which is kind of the only option these days. And we'll talk about AMD a little later on, but I'm going to walk through the Intel processor family. So you're going to go, okay, which one I'm going to buy? There are lots of options, right, Sean?
There's a ton.
There's a ton. I think we should start on the low end and grow and go through the generations. And let's start with the Atom, because that's sort of a fairly new addition to the family.
Yes.
Now, Atom is all over, I guess, this new generation of laptops called netbooks.
Netbooks, yes, definitely. There was a whole pile of them came out over the last little while, and Intel really went to a lot of pains to get a new processor that didn't necessarily have all of the oomph of the big processors that you find in a desktop, because you don't need that, but to still be adequate and yet do this all with very low power.
Right. So Atom, that's the feature, right? It's a low-power, single-core, meaning one-brain processor. It runs 32-bit applications. So it really is designed for optimal internet surfing and internet experience connectivity. You're not going to render a movie with an Atom processor. You're not going to edit any large photo file. You're not going to play games with the Atom processor. You're going to open a web browser. You're going to check email and that sort of thing. Right. So it's going to come in an affordable package generally. Machines that are considered netbooks or internet appliances, under $500.
You can get it for $200-300 even for the real entry-level ones.
As low as that.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, good. So that's the Atom processor. It's a worthy place to start because you're going to see a lot of these coming up in the next little while.
Yeah, someone was actually talking recently about the whole move to 64-bit computing in the whole world, and when's Windows going to just say, okay, it's all 64-bit, no more 32-bit, and the Atom, it's going to be sticking around for a while. That's why 32-bit will still be prevalent.
Will stay around for a while.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's step up now. We don't want a netbook. We want something that has a little bit of oomph, but we don't want to spend any money at all, right? The next place to go is, it's almost like anachronistic. It's a brand you've heard of from the past called the Celeron.
Celeron?
Celeron is still around, amazingly enough.
Celeron is still around?
It is. Intel is making the Celeron processor. If you want rock-bottom pricing on a fully-fledged laptop, you're going to get a Celeron processor. It is around. It is going to be single-core. It is just the bottom of the barrel, but if you're rubbing two pennies together, it's the processor for you.
Yeah, now I remember back in the day when there was the Pentium and the Celeron beside each other. The Pentium was the full-fledged processor, and the Celeron was basically the Pentium with half the cache blown out. So the cache being the memory on board the processor that allowed it to do its thing, and this one is just slower because it had less of that on board.
Right. Well, if you're dealing with a sub-$300 processor on a fully-fledged laptop, you're probably going to come across a Celeron processor.
Yeah. Okay.
You did mention the Pentium and that's been an enduring brand. It's been with Intel, well, as long as I can remember, since we've been in this business, back to the Pentium 1 back in the early 90s or the mid-90s.
Yeah, but that's gone now because they moved to Core 2.
It hasn't.
What?
The Pentium
Celeron
is still
and
there.
the Pentium are still around?
You will actually go and you actually see there's a Pentium branded computer, except that it's multi-core. You'll see Pentium dual core, and that's the way it's presented. So what
this is kind of like New Coke. They sort of like brought back the old classic again.
Well, if you remember the Pentium D.
People didn't like this new stuff.
Remember the Pentium D?
I do remember the Pentium D.
It was a dual core, Pentium 4 with 2 cores. It really is, that's what it is. Pentium dual core is one of those guys. Probably evolved somewhat and is still being built. But so the Pentium dual core processor is a performance budget computer. Does that make sense?
I guess so.
It's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. It's going to be down there in the basement from a pricing perspective. But you have 2 cores. When I talked to the Intel rep recently, he's called it our value line. Not our low-cost line, our value line, meaning you get some performance for very little money.
Okay.
Okay, so you will come across that.
But this won't give you the full performance that you can get.
It will not. Let's step up now. Do you remember Intel introduced out of a fab in Tel Aviv called the Core, right? And that was, it was actually Pentium 3 became the core line of processors, meaning ultra-low power, high performance processor that was started off as a mobile, but actually made its way into the desktop.
So from the Pentium 3 through to, I think, the Pentium M with mobile and then onto Core.
There you go, onto Core, exactly. So we got to the Core 2, and Core 2 is the sort of stable version of that. And so now you will actually run into the Core 2 Duo, meaning a dual core processor, the 2nd generation.
Okay, so in Core 2, the 2 doesn't mean two cores.
No,
it means the
second generation of the core, right? So Core 2 Duo now, you will find that in desktops, you will find it in laptops, and specifically you'll find it in performance, small form factor performance machines. I happen to have a Dell machine here. It's the M1330.
Catchy.
Very catchy, I know. It's the XPS line. I bought it a couple of years ago, and I bought it again when I burned the first one out because it gives me good performance in a very, very light 13-inch form factor. So you're going to see Core 2 in performance laptops, and you're also going to see them in desktops too. But you know, in that mid-line, that mid-budget desktop, the $1,000 range, Core 2 Duo.
I do remember when the Core was launched, and the Core 2 Duo. That was the one big selling point of it. Is they were sort of notebooks and desktops were now using the same processor. There wasn't the split like there was before, where you had a mobility version of it and then a desktop version of it. It was essentially all the same, and which one you chose depending on your needs for the unit itself.
Absolutely, exactly. And you know, and the reason was because it was affordable to manufacture. It was low power, and it was a performer. So they had a breakthrough in their manufacturing.
Now, is that still the case where you have the mobile and the desktop all in the same box? They're all the same now?
More or less, yeah. The chip casing may be different, but ultimately the processor itself, the engineering itself is exactly the same.
Okay.
All right. Now, not to be outdone, and this starts to get complicated, we move to the Core 2 Quad. And the Core 2 Quad is basically 4 processors now. It's your Core 2 Duo, except now it has 4 processors, 4 cores, 4 brains.
Okay.
Core 2 Quad.
Core 2. These numbering systems, they need a
Core technology, 2nd generation, 4 processors for Core 2 Quad.
This is getting confusing.
I know.
Okay, okay.
That's a performance-based chip for desktops and laptops. Again, you're not going to find the Core 2 Quad in a slim, sexy form factor on a 13-inch. You'll see it in a slightly more robust laptops or slightly more performance-oriented desktops. 4 cores is great. 4 is better than 2. You've got 4 brains working instead of 2. Again, price point slightly higher than the Core 2 Duo. It's a slightly newer technology. Okay.
Right.
All right. So there we are. Now we're moving out of that sort of central, moderate price range computer, and we're getting now into the more premium end of things. So, and why Intel did this, I don't know, but they've moved to 2 new lines, 2 new in the Core line.
This hammering has been going on for like at least the last month and a half. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if it's reading on our mics, but yeah, somebody upstairs knocking around. Maybe it's Intel just building the next generation of Core technology.
Yeah, they do that with hammers, you know, and little chisels.
Exactly, it's very small elves. Okay, so let's step into the next generation of Core, because this is worthy of that conversation. But there's
Where's your hammer? Maybe they're sending Morse code.
Okay.
Ooh, I think I
so
dented the table.
Be careful.
Okay, what's next?
So we're moving into the next generation core. So we're seeing something called Core i5 and Core i7. Now, dumb, right? It should be called the Core 5 and the Core 7, I would think. But no, and I don't know why they put the I in there. You're going to see a Core i5 and the Core i7. So let's talk about the Core i7 first. No, let's do it the other way around. Core i5.
Okay.
You'll find the Core i5 technology. It's a 4-core processor, just like the Core 2 quad.
There's 4 processors in the 5.
Yes, in the i5. I know, it's very complicated.
Okay.
All right.
Let me guess. Let me guess how many are in the 7. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll be testing in a minute. So in the i5, it's a desktop-only chip at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The i5 is a quad-core processor, 4 brains, except that it introduces hyperthreading. You remember hyperthreading?
I remember hyperthreading.
Explain hyperthreading.
It was introduced, I think, was it in the Pentium 3 or the Pentium 4? But we've got this whole concept of multiple cores, which is essentially physical processors on the die of the CPU. Hyperthreading was virtual, so instead of actually separating up all of the transistors, they used the same transistors but kept 2 virtual processors. Yeah. So imagine when you're using your desktop, you have a Macintosh and you're running Windows on it inside Parallels, yeah. For example. You got 2 of them running side by side. Same sort of thing. It virtualizes the space, right. Has 2 different threads going through, but using the same transistors. Right.
So to Windows, a single core, a single brain actually looks like 2 brains.
Yes.
But it's all done through software and through logic.
Right.
Okay.
Virtual.
It's
all virtual.
Right. So the Core i5 introduces hyperthreading. So a Core i5 quad-core processor, 4-core processor, would look to Windows like an 8-core processor.
8. So it's called the 5. It has 4, but it really looks like 8.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, this is making sense
now.
now.
All right, you got it? All right. And you would buy that on your desktop, and it was a gaming, a performance-based machine, and that sort of thing. Okay. Let's get into the premium world. This is where things get really exciting. And Intel has a tendency to add kind of these cool features to the top end. So it's the same physical dimensions, some engineering in there with logic and with some extra features. Shut up! And that is, so it's a Core i7.
Okay.
Would you like to guess how many cores are in the i7?
Well, let's just count how many hammer blows we hear. I'm going to guess it has 6 cores, but it reads to Windows like 23.
No. But good guess. Absolute good guess. The Core i7 is a quad-core processor with virtualization, hyperthreading. So it has 8 cores. Except, right? Except that in the i7, there's a new technology called Turbo Boost. And you remember the computers way back in the day? You had a little red button, and you pushed the button, it's turbo, and it overclocked the processor. It made it go a little faster.
Yeah, I think my 286 had one of those.
Right, exactly. So now...
So we're using technology from the late 80s.
You would think so. Except the little red button is now a software feature and not a physical thing that happens. So Windows goes, okay, 4-core that it looks like 8. Give me some more juice. Give me some more juice, please. And so the core responds by going, okay, let's just push the envelope a little bit here and rev these things up. So it's overclocking, meaning running the processor a little faster, inside the engineering specifications. So
which means they could have given you a little bit more juice, but they chose not to, so they could give you a little bit of extra juice later and make it look like a feature.
On demand.
On demand.
So that's a reasonable thing. Okay, so
Maybe.
Let's review. Core i7, 4-core processor, hyper-threaded to make it look like 8 virtual cores, with Turbo Boost to inch out a little bit extra performance when the software asks for it, when Photoshop or your video editor or Windows 7 asks for it.
Okay, so if it was running at top end all the time, then there'd be heat issues and maybe a little bit of stability.
Yeah. So I think that's how they're getting around it. I don't know for sure, but I think that they're just going to give you that little boost when you need it, but not all the time. Make sense?
Okay, so your computer will run cooler and better otherwise.
Ultimately.
Hopefully.
Core i7.
Yeah, and this is exactly the reason why overclocking is a bit of a crapshoot when you're overclocking processors that allow it, but technically the manufacturer says no, is that you're gaining a little bit of extra speed, but sometimes the computer crashes because it doesn't work so well.
Right. Exactly.
But this is authorized, sanctioned by Intel.
There you go. So Core i7 ultimately is your gaming performance machine. It's your multimedia editing, content creation. Video editors would be using Core i7s, that sort of thing. Okay.
Sold.
There you go. All right, so that is, in a nutshell, the Intel generation, or the Intel family of microprocessors you're going to encounter in retail these days when you go buy your own personal computer.
Yeah, so we didn't mention things like Xeon, for example, which is a little bit higher end, maybe used in high-end workstations and whatnot.
And it's more of an enterprise or business approach. Okay, let's take a break, but after the break, I think we want to talk real quick about AMD and what's going on there.
I think AMD would like us to do that too.
They would. We'll see. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got more stuff from butterscotch.com and what's going on in the AMD world right now. That's after this. Well, it's hammer time here at Lab Rats, and we've kept a high-energy episode, and there's a guy on the roof. I don't know. It's banging away. It's driving us crazy. Well, let's just... Yeah, there we go. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about... well, first of all, I want to throw to us. We are at CES. Now, right now, remember, we're shooting this at the end of 2009, and we're going to the Consumer Electronics Show to see what's going on with the latest in consumer electronics. We're going to see Intel. So let's go see us in the future and see what we have to say about the latest microprocessors that we find out about the Consumer Electronics Show.
So guys, what did you see?
Well, hey guys, yeah, there is an update. We just actually sent Sean on a mission to find out, and you just came back from the booth, and what happened?
Well, I got a chance to talk to Karen at Intel, and she told us about a new addition to the processor line. Of course, you know about the i5 and the i7. Well, they've introduced new versions of those in both mobile and desktop, so it goes across that whole line. But they've also introduced a new, more value-oriented one called the i3. So we've got a full update. We did an interview with her, which we can take a look at right now if you want.
Okay, let's have a look.
Well, you all know Intel. They're the makers of the biggest selling processors in the whole wide world. And, you know, they're introducing some new processors right here at CES.
That's right.
So I'm here with Karen from Intel, who's going to tell us a little bit about what's new. So,
well, there's lots that's new today. We actually are announcing 27 new products. We have 17 new processors. This is for desktop and mobile.
Okay.
17 new processors, 7 new 5 Series chipsets, and 3 new Intel Centrino wireless offerings. You know, we repurposed that Centrino name to now represent our wireless products.
Okay. Well, we're definitely interested in the CPU end of the equation here, because we took a look at this earlier, and now we're getting an update on it.
Okay.
So you have had the i5 out for a while and the i7.
We've had the i5 and the i7 in the desktop space, i7 only in the mobile space till today.
Okay, and now what have you announced in terms of the i5 today?
Well, today we're announcing 4 new i5 processors for mobile, and then 2 new Core i3 processors for mobile and 2 for desktop. And then desktop also has some new i5 offerings as well.
Now i3 is a completely new line, right?
It's the first time we've introduced something into that part of the brand stack. So we have this good, better, best stack that is represented by our Core i3, i5, and i7. You know, the i7, of course, being the ultimate in smart performance, and the Core i3 being kind of the entry point into the smart performance.
So more value-oriented solution. So what's the big distinction between those and the higher-end ones technology-wise?
Well, so the products that have been out to date have been based on our first generation Nehalem 45 nanometer quad core. What we're introducing today is not just new entries into the different parts of the brand, but we're also offering our new Westmere architecture built on our 32 nanometer technology. All of these parts are dual core parts with hyper-threading that makes it look like they have 4 cores to the OS. And they also have the Intel HD graphics, which is a huge leap in performance improvement compared to our previous generation, and not our generation that we introduced 2 years ago, what's out in market today. Where you start to see some differentiation between the stack is in the i3 space. You get all of that goodness, but when you step up to i5, you also get something that we call Intel Turbo Boost technology. It's also available in the quad-core products that are out there, but it gives you that combination of the brute strength or brawn of those 4 virtual cores. But when you don't need that, it takes all those extra processor resources, that extra power, and it delivers it to the 1 or 2 cores that need it. Delivers the power when and where the consumer needs it, so the experience is going to be snappy, responsive, and really, really fun for the end user.
So there we go. So i5 and i7 as before, a bit smarter, a little bit more...
Gets a boost.
Gives you a boost. And the i3, if you are looking for a processor that's good and has the high-def graphics, it is more value-oriented.
If you're looking for a product that's great and value-oriented, then yeah, the i3. If you're looking for that performance with the boost, which is actually very cool. If you had a chance to play with it, it is really, really cool stuff. Then you can step up to an i5. And again, even the i5 products are going to be priced to be accessible to a mainstream consumer. Okay. So the choice is theirs.
And so when did these products roll out into the channel?
They're starting today. I think that what you'll see is some of the transactional SKUs available on retail shelf on the 17th of this month, starting then and rolling out, ramping throughout the quarter. So spring cycle is going to be all new, all core, all Intel.
There you go. Go out and get yours today.
Well, there you go. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Karen is great because she straddles that line between geeky and consumer-friendly perfectly. Yeah. I understand what she's talking about, but it's not too skimpy on the technical details. I love it.
Oh, it's amazing. Thanks a lot. Okay, well, that's it for us, guys. Back in studio. Hey, is it still noisy there? I hate those guys. What a bunch of smartasses.
They're jerks.
Yes, the hammers are still a problem. Listen. All right, well, I'm glad you're hammer-free there in Las Vegas. All right, so just a real quick mention here. We didn't talk a lot about AMD. AMD seems to be off the radar now. I mean, in the low-end budget computers, you know, you're seeing them around, but what's happened?
Yeah, well, they got into a bit of a rocky patch a while back when Intel was just, it used to be a leapfrog sort of situation where Intel would do something great, then AMD would leap over them, and Intel would come up with something else. But there got to be a point when Intel just kept going, and they were just waiting for the next big thing. Right. And they've never really recovered from that. They're still doing their thing. They're still putting out good processors. They work perfectly fine. They're just lower performance processors, really, is what it comes down to. So they got the Athlon 2, they've got the Phenom 2, which are, you know, evolutions from their previous versions of that. They're lower price, and this is really where AMD has gotten a little bit smart. They know they can't beat Intel on the performance on some of these, so they're saying, okay, so for the price, look at what you get. Right. It's going to be a much more value-oriented alternative. So you got HP and you got the Dells of the world, and they're still using the AMD processors. They're just not in the high-end notebooks.
There you go. So AMD equals budget-priced computers.
And they're very good for all of that.
There you go, competing with, I guess, the Pentium dual core and the Celeron.
Yeah, and in some cases against the Atom. So
there you go. Interesting. All right. There you go. Thank you for tuning in this week and watching our hammer-filled tribute to the latest in multi-core processors, the newest family of processors from Intel. I think they've gone home. Awesome. All right. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And we'll see you next time. Get him, Sean. Get him.
Are you ready? Try this at home.
So you said, hey, guys, what have you seen? I'll say, hey, thanks, Andy and Sean. So here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Hey, how's the hammering going? All right, and that'll come back. And so then let's take that back. Like, okay. All right.